Hi, everybody in HCEC 100. It's Patricia, and we're moving into week 5. We're going to be looking this week at ABC records and learning stories. So we're going to be looking at analytic styles of observations as well as authentic styles of observations. We did look briefly at learning stories in week 3 with narrative and anecdotal records, but we're wrapping them up this week in this final observation set. So let's just take a look at what we're looking at this week. So the first thing, back and forth, which one to look at? We're going to look at ABC records. We've done narrative records where we have watched minute by minute what somebody is doing, recorded the information, added our thoughts and comments, and then provided our interpretation. We looked at anecdotals where we saw something happening, we made some quick notes, and then we wrote out the observation in a little bit more detail, flushed it out a little bit more, just as a quick and easy observation style. We looked at frequency. How often are they doing this? How long do they do it for? So they're doing it for 2 minutes. They sustain it for, they do, 12 out of, they do it 12 times a minute. They sustain it for 20 seconds each time. That doesn't really quite work. But looking at how we do it over a 2-minute span, they've did it 12 times, each one lasting approximately 20 seconds. So that way we're getting data, hard facts. The other piece in a checklist, we're saying, well, yes, they're able to do this skill, or yes, they did this. Yes, they followed all the procedures. Check, check, check. So we see that there are values of using checklists. The discussions have been rich with the challenges and opportunities. We're not sort of saying, no, we can't use one or the other. There's not a lot of inferences we can draw from checklists and frequency duration, but they do provide us something to move forward with in setting goals. Now we're coming into ABC records. There is a really helpful reading from Early Learning Canada. Again, education assistant and Indigenous human service worker students, I appreciate you thinking, oh, more ECE stuff. This is a primary course for ECE, and it's a required course in both the EA and the Indigenous human service workers, because we do this as professionals. We do observations. It's easier for me to access videos around children doing things, and it's easier for us to sort of look at children doing things. I'm certainly not looking for you all to be masters of human development. It's just the idea of getting the foundation of how we do the skill of writing an observation. Helpful reading, helpful video to take a look at. The idea of ABC records is saying, I see this behavior. What happened before the behavior started, and what was the consequence of the behavior? So we know that what happened in the environment, what happened interpersonally, what happened with the weather, what happened just before the behavior started. And as a consequence, what happens after that behavior? So we look at those 3 things, A, B, C, an ABC record. So the idea is typically it's done for behaviors that are challenging, but it could also be very positive behaviors, and looking at what the feedback is on that piece. So we look at a variety of ideas. Here's a click here to see a sample ABC record, and then you create your own ABC record and drop it in the Dropbox. You can find the template within the assignment category. I did add a fresh video to go with the ABC records, a couple of videos. So when you look at the video list, you'll see some that say ABC, useful for ABC, ABC, ABC. You can use any video for them. I just thought some of them might be more directed to ABC records. So that's an ABC record, short and sweet. It sounds really easy. The challenging is looking at the consequence, often the consequence of the behavior. And again, in our summaries, we're talking about, it seems that every time we call for a transition or we call for tidying up the space, that this behavior is seen, and the consequences seem to be whatever they appear to be. Again, remember when we come back to our narratives and anecdotals, that subjective language, making sure that we keep our language as open-ended as we possibly can, and try to avoid using words either in our observation or in our summaries that are vague, like playing or crying. Like what else could we say? Playing or seems upset, seems like they have a leadership role. Those things don't belong in the observation piece. Those are all things that we're thinking. So make sure that we're very clear about our subjective and objective language. When we move over from ABC records, here's the format. Again, we see the standard at all of them, and we look at the date and time. The neat part about ABC records, as well as frequency duration records and checklists, we can do them cumulatively on one document, so we really get to see a pattern emerging from them. But you see that the observation formats don't change. It's just what we're recording and why we're recording it. Let's see, that's the Dropbox for it. The next piece we want to go on to is portfolios and documentation. We talked in the checklist and saying that, oh, well, I wouldn't just do a checklist. I would do more. I would build a portfolio of observations. So take a quick read around and look at some of the portfolios and how portfolios could be used. Think about how they could be used within your own fields of study. What would it be? What could it look like? A portfolio observation series can be really great because then we have artifacts included in it. I would like you, particularly if you're in early childhood and education assistant programs, to spend some time in the digital documentation piece, looking at what documentation is. Documentations or doing displays. So taking a look at some, I really encourage you, this Salmon Speaks documentation from We Childcare in Southfield Plan. The projects in here have inspired me over the years. And I really think they have valuable insights into observations about programs, as well as working with children and staff. So take some time to read the Salmon Speaks work. Inspirational, my opinion. We have one discussion board piece. I'm encouraging you to look at a pedagogical narration from the ECPN work or from the Salmon Speaks project, and discuss how all the areas that we've explored, narratives, anecdotals, frequency, duration, learning stories, ABC records, connect and disconnect with narrations and documentation. And which ways of documenting do you see yourself leaning into just at the beginning of for some of you, at the beginning of your chosen field in early childhood education assistant or Indigenous human service worker? Where do you see yourself? Yeah, I think if I was doing observations in general, I would lean into this, or my top 3 would be. So we're hoping for some conversations around that. I brought forward the learning story format. Again, I would encourage you to read the reading on Tom Drummond's work and just to peruse the early learning framework, particularly those in the EA and ECE worlds. Talking about what is a learning story. So we're looking at the story of a child's learning, what others have learned from that activity piece, and what's next. What can the educator do for that piece? So your learning story may involve you sharing this observation with somebody else and getting their opinion, a sister, a cousin, a friend, a peer in the class. What is their opinion on what they're seeing in the story? Again, encourage you to get a video clip from the collection. I put, I think, 1 or 2 in there that target. There's a lot of them that fit with learning stories. That I encourage you then to create your own learning story and put it in the Dropbox. So this week, let's see if we have anything else in the files for this week. No, Dropbox for the learning story, and that's it. So this week, what we're going to do is read the work on ABCs, read the work on portfolios and documentation. We are going to create and submit an example of an ABC observation, create and submit a learning story, and we'll join the conversation online. And that should bring us to a close on the beginning of thinking about our observation work. On or by June 9th, you should have all of your observations submitted, a narrative or anecdotal, a frequency, duration, or checklist, an ABC record, and a learning story. 4 observations submitted for feedback and comments. And I think that takes us out of this week pretty effectively. I guess that's it for this week. I'll see you online and keep working on things.